The relationship between the United States and India has long been characterized by a mix of strategic partnership and economic friction. In recent years, under President Donald Trump's second term, trade policies have once again taken center stage. As of February 2026, the Trump administration has maintained an 18% tariff on Indian goods, a decision that has sparked debates among economists, policymakers, and business leaders. This tariff is not a new imposition but a reduced rate from previously higher levels, yet it remains in place despite ongoing negotiations and agreements. Understanding why the administration continues to enforce this 18% tariff requires delving into the broader context of U.S.-India trade dynamics, historical tariffs, geopolitical considerations, and economic strategies aimed at addressing trade imbalances. To begin with, it's essential to trace the origins of these tariffs. During Trump's first presidency, 2017 to 2021, he frequently criticized what he perceived as unfair trade practices by various countries, including India. He labeled India as the tariff king due to its high import duties on American products, such as motorcycles and agricultural goods. In response, the U.S. imposed tariffs on Indian steel and aluminum exports in 2018, citing national security concerns under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. India retaliated with tariffs on U.S. products like almonds and walnuts. These measures set the stage for a tit-for-tat dynamic that persisted even after Trump left office in 2021. Upon Trump's return to the White House in January 2025, following his victory in the 2024 election, he quickly revived his America First trade agenda. In June 2025, the administration announced a 25% reciprocal tariff on Indian goods, arguing that India's trade surplus with the U.S. was unsustainable, and that New Delhi needed to open its markets more to American exports. This move was part of a broader strategy to renegotiate trade deals and reduce the U.S. trade deficit globally. By August 2025, tensions escalated further when Trump imposed an additional 25% tariff specifically targeting India's purchases of Russian oil, bringing the effective rate on many Indian exports to 50%. The rationale here was geopolitical. India had continued to buy discounted Russian crude despite Western sanctions following Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, which the U.S. viewed as undermining efforts to isolate Moscow economically. Fast forward to February 2026, and the landscape has shifted somewhat. On February 2, 2026, President Trump announced a preliminary trade agreement with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi after a phone call between the two leaders. Under this deal, agreed to slash the tariffs on Indian goods from the punitive 50% down to 18%. In exchange, India committed to several concessions, halting its purchases of Russian oil, replacing them with supplies from the U.S. and Venezuela, reducing its own tariffs on a range of American products to zero or near zero levels, and pledging to buy up to $500 billion worth of U.S. goods over time, including agricultural products, energy, and manufactured items. Modi confirmed the new 18% tariff rate in a post on X, formerly Twitter, describing it as a step toward restoring stability in bilateral ties. However, the key question remains, why not eliminate the tariff entirely? Why still impose 18%? The answer lies primarily in the persistent U.S. trade deficit with India. Census Bureau data. India's trade surplus with the United States reached $53.5 billion in the first 11 months of 2025, up from $45.8 billion for the entire year of 2024. This surplus means India exports far more to the U.S. than it imports, which Trump and his advisors argue disadvantages American workers and industries. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer explicitly stated that the 18% baseline tariff is being retained to address this giant trade deficit. Greer emphasized that while the agreement includes India's commitments to lower barriers, the tariff serves as a safeguard to ensure compliance and to encourage further market opening. This approach aligns with Trump's overall trade philosophy, which prioritizes reciprocity. Throughout his political career, Trump has advocated for fair and reciprocal trade, where the U.S. mirrors the tariffs imposed by its partners. Prior to the recent deal, India's average applied tariff rate was around 15.6%, with effective rates on some sectors even higher. By setting the U.S. tariff at 18%, the administration is signaling that it expects India to continue reducing its own duties. Trump himself noted in a Truth Social post that India would move forward to reduce their tariffs and non-tariff barriers against the United States to zero. The 18% rate, therefore, acts as leverage in ongoing negotiations, with the potential for further reductions if India fulfills its promises. Geopolitics also plays a significant role in this decision. The tariff reduction was tied directly to India's agreement to cease buying Russian oil, a move that advances U.S. interests in weakening Russia's war economy. India had been one of the largest buyers of Russian crude, taking advantage of discounted prices amid global sanctions. By shifting to U.S. and Venezuelan oil, India not only complies with U.S. directives, pressure, but also deepens energy ties with Washington. However, the administration's choice to maintain 18% rather than dropping to zero reflects lingering mistrust. Relations soured earlier in Trump's second term when he claimed to have mediated an end to India-Pakistan conflicts, a claim New Delhi rejected. Additionally, the U.S. spared China, another major Russian oil importer, from similar punitive tariffs, which raised eyebrows in India and contributed to perceptions of inconsistency. From an economic perspective, the 18% tariff helps protect certain U.S. industries. Sectors like textiles, pharmaceuticals, and information technology services, where India has a competitive edge, could face increased competition without tariffs. By keeping the rate at 18%, the administration aims to shield domestic producers, while still allowing trade to flow. Economists note that complete tariff elimination could exacerbate the trade deficit, potentially leading to job losses in vulnerable American sectors. For instance, the U.S. steel industry, which benefited from earlier tariffs, continues to lobby for protections against cheap imports. Moreover, this tariff fits into Trump's broader tariff strategy across Asia. Compared to other nations, India's 18% rate is relatively low. China faces tariffs as high as 60% on certain goods, while Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Vietnam deal with rates around 20 to 25%. This positioning gives India a comparative advantage, potentially diverting trade from higher tariff countries and strengthening U.S.-India supply chain ties amid efforts to decouple from China. The deal is seen as a strategic reset, but experts warn that the devil is in the details, with legal hurdles and implementation challenges ahead. Critics of the tariff argue that it could hinder global growth. Higher tariffs increase costs for U.S. consumers and businesses reliant on Indian imports, such as generic drugs and IT components. Inflationary pressures from Trump's tariff policies have already been a concern, with some economists estimating that broad tariffs could add 1 to 2% to U.S. inflation rates. In India, the 18% duty might slow export growth, affecting industries that employ millions. However, proponents counter that the agreement unlocks opportunities, such as increased U.S. farm exports to India, which could benefit American agriculture. Looking ahead, the sustainability of the 18% tariff depends on compliance. The White House has indicated that the deal is preliminary, with paperwork still pending. If India reduces its trade surplus and fully implements tariff cuts, further reductions could follow. Conversely, any backsliding, such as resuming Russian oil purchases, might prompt re-escalation. This dynamic underscores the tariff's role as a tool for ongoing diplomacy, rather than a permanent fixture. In conclusion, the Trump administration's decision to maintain an 18% tariff on India stems from a combination of economic imperatives to address the trade deficit, geopolitical strategies to curb Russian influence, and a push for reciprocal trade practices. While it's a concession from higher rates, it serves as leverage to ensure India's commitments are met. As bilateral ties evolve, this tariff could either pave the way for deeper cooperation or reignite tensions, depending on how both nations navigate the complexities of global trade.